just as a quick sneak peek, this is what we'll be making today. We have this form entry. It's based in Kintone, and the user can input what kind of AI image they want to generate. Then we're going to link up a generate images button to the DALL-E API endpoint. It'll send that stuff that we choose, like a happy dog wearing a jacket, for example, to DALL-E, and then DALL-E will generate the image. We're going to save that image into the database. If you've always wanted to save your garbage, wonderful AI art, right? You can save it in the database. It's a pretty cool workshop, in my opinion, and it's fun. So I'm assuming there's all kinds of different people in here. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we are Kintone. We've been around for a while, but we're just starting to get out into the US and other places a bit. And it's a really cool platform that I'll talk about a little bit later. And then we'll just get right into coding practice together. I have the chat down here on the phone. So like when I look down, I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you, chat. And then we have Genji here in the studio with us today. My main man, Genji. Couldn't live without him. He does everything. And then we have Jesslyn with us as well. Wonderful, wonderful Jesslyn. And they'll be talking to you in chat. And if you have any questions or if you get stuck and stuff, or if you just want to chat, honestly, like we're all bored here. If you just want to ask a question, that's fine too. First, we're going to be cloning a GitHub repo. We have some code ready. Then we are going to be getting a Kintone subdomain, our free developer license. It's going to work as our backend database this time. And we'll set up like the database. It'll go real fast because Kintone's great, in my opinion. And after that, we're going to get into coding. What we'll be doing with our JavaScript is actually uploading it into our Kintone environment so that we have access to that data and the database records directly. So we don't have to, for example, like set up on localhost like a front end and then first get the data with an API and then send that data via API to OpenAI. We're actually just uploading our code directly into our quote-unquote Kintone environment database. And if you want to do something that's a little bit more independent from Kintone, you totally can. Today we'll be using Kintone because it'll make life faster and easier. But this actually, if you don't want to upload directly to Kintone, we have tutorials on how to like set up a backend and hit up your database, your Kintone database via API, get data and stuff as well. Check out our YouTube channel. There's lots of videos with me talking about stupid stuff. Yep. And here's our workshop overview. Just one more time. When I start a workshop, I like to think about what we're going to be making today and teach you kind of like how to think like a programmer, kind of analyze a project, right? Because I know a lot of you are like out there, you're starting to learn programming, and I was in your shoes not even 4 years ago, and look at me now. But in all seriousness, it's a really good skill to be able to look at a project that you see and like break it down into its parts. So we have our Kintone database, right? And when we are using an AI prompt, what happens with an AI prompt? That's ChatGPT, that's this DALL-E image API generator as well, or AI image generator. What happens is you give it human readable text, right? So you give it some text and then it responds with something else. And that's what we're going to be doing with our image generation API endpoint. We're going to be sending it like, I want a dog or a cat who looks happy, sad, angry. They're holding a something and they're wearing some kind of clothes items, right? So we want to take that text, right? And our end user is here in our Kintone environment. It's a form entry, which you could replicate outside of Kintone if you want to. It's not that hard. They're not going to be hand typing out stuff, right? You want them to pick from a select objects, right? Because you don't want them generating funky API stuffs on your dollar, right? They could say, I want feet pics, and then you have to pay for that. And that's not cool. So we're going to do form entry, right? And you're going to have a couple options to pick from. And then what we have to do on our end, on the front end, is we're going to gather together all those like text options. Then we're going to compile all those stuff together into like a text string. And then we're going to throw that over to the API. The API is going to send back an image. And OpenAPI, it actually has two ways that it can send back images. One is like a link, and then you click the link, and then it shows the image. And then I think it gets deleted after 3 days or something, right? The other is you can receive the raw image data in base64 format, which I'll talk about what that is advanced, but not, you don't really need to know. And what we're going to do is we're going to get that raw data, turn it into an image file, organize it, and then we're going to save it into our database. That way we can keep this ugly rabbit wearing a hoodie thing forever, if you so choose. Does that make sense? Those are our steps today, are like what we'll be making. So in order to make that project, right, we're going to have to follow a couple of steps. So what we're going to be doing first is we're going to actually be creating our Kintone environment, right? And okay, we're actually going to git clone our project and stuff, and we're going to install dependencies, and then we're going to create our Kintone environment. We're going to connect it to our front end, right? You have to connect your front end and your back end via our .env file. Then we're going to fill out the database form entry that you saw. So you can pick dog, cat, happy, sad. And then after we have all that ready, we're going to be coding our front end and making some API calls. Okay. We'll be hitting up our OpenAI endpoint from Kintone. Kintone, what is Kintone? Kintone is a no-code, low-code cloud platform for teams to easily share and collaborate on data efficiently. That's very business-oriented, but what it is, it's a groupware platform that we have, and it's incredibly popular here in Japan, and we're just starting to branch out in the US. Been around for 10 years or so-ish, and it's really cool for not only teams, but also for the individual. And I, as an individual coder, use it in my free time all the time as well. So, okay, no-code, low-code cloud platform, what does that mean? Basically, you can store data and you can work on data. And since it's groupware, you can work on that data with multiple people if you need to and talk about that data, right? So if you've ever been like at a coding job and your boss is like, hey, Sean, I need you to edit file 1435. And he told me that in like a communications channel, like Slack or like by email or something. Okay, where's file 4315? I don't know. I have to go look for it. And then on the other hand, I'm editing file 4315 and I have to tell G from sales that like, hey, I changed this customer's name. And then, okay, here's the data, but where do I talk to him about that? Which communication channel? In Kintone, it's all together. And what is a database? Databases are just columns and then rows of information, right? So you have, for example, customer name, customer phone number, number of sales, and then you have rows, customer number 1, Sean, phone number 12345, for example, and so on and so forth, right? Just almost like an Excel spreadsheet, really. It's a database, and then you can create these databases or like create your backend with drag and drop, and I'll show you later. We'll do this together. It takes 5 minutes, which I hinted at, right? I could code out for my coding projects like a MySQL database, and then like I have to, for example, create some routes, and then I have to make some API tokens, handle authentication stuff. I don't like to do that. I like to get stuff done. And so I just use Kintone in my own personal life as well when I do coding projects. And there's whole companies here in Japan that are like, they just make stuff on top of Kintone, like customize it and stuff. So go ahead, open up the GitHub repo, right? Or if you're a GitHub desktop kind of person, go to a terminal or whatever and just type it in like GitHub repo clone and do that. And it'll create a folder where you clone it called AI Kintone Gallery. And please move into that folder. We have some dependencies ready for you, and that is basically like a cool spinner and some other stuff that we can check in the code base. And then, is anybody a GitHub desktop user instead? No. Yeah, only. There you go. See, don't ignore Genji in the chat. Genji should be protected, not ignored. Yeah, cool. That's cool. So we've installed our dependencies using npm install, or if you're really cool and you want to show off, you can just do npm I. That'll always impress someone at a coding interview. And what are our dependencies? We have an env thing that'll like help bundle our env file variables. We have Vite, which is going to be packaging our JavaScript and compiling it, quote unquote, for us into a minimized version. And then we have spin.js, which is just a random like spinner library that I found and installed. And basically when we're creating the AI image, it takes some time. I wanted to show a little spinner so that way people don't like navigate away. Then once we have installed our dependencies, so we need to install Kintone Customize Uploader, right? And we need to install it globally because it works outside of our project to upload JavaScript within our project. If you don't want to install it, that's totally okay. But I recommend installing it just because it makes uploading JavaScript to your Kintone environment a little bit easier. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to work out our .env file. And what we're going to do is we need to connect our code base to our Kintone environment, right? First, we got to make a Kintone environment, and we're going to go through that together right now. and it should be really fast. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put in like our URL, username, password, and a couple API tokens, right? Because we want to connect them before we build out our database. And like someone was saying earlier, how long does it last? It lasts forever. It lasts forever as long as you keep using it and you don't abuse it. Yeah, what was I talking about? Anyways, so when you sign up for your Kintone subdomain, what is a Kintone subdomain? It is going to be your own personal area. So like I have sean.kintone.com, which means you cannot take it. And with sean.kintone.com, it is my own personal space. I have my URL up here, sean.kintone.com. And basically this allows me to create databases, do stuff. I have a couple for some personal projects that I do, which is nice to have. Anyways, let's keep moving. We got a lot of stuff to do today. Sign up for your Kintone. Hey, sign up right now. And if you put in your first name and last name, like I said, we don't sell that information. You don't really have to put in your real first name, last name, but helps if you have a problem. And then the email has to be a real email because we don't want people to spam domains. So your subdomain is accessible by anybody, but is password protected. So you can create a subdomain and have other people view it if you want, if you give them password access. Yep. Cool. When you are on your portal right here, we are going to create a new database or a new area for us to work in. Over here on the bottom, it'll say apps, right? Please click on the plus sign for apps. And this is the part where like I always say, oh, I could code out a MySQL database and roots and API token authentication, but I don't want to. This is the part that we're going to be doing all of that in probably like less than 10 minutes, which is fantastic in my opinion. Really good way to save time in my life. And you're going to click create app from scratch. You could also like import and like copy and stuff, but we're just going to be creating one from scratch today. We're not going to fill out any data in there. We're just going to create it and then also get our like information so we can connect it to our front end that we just get cloned, right? So name your app something cool that you will understand. Workshop AI 4. Please click on activate app. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. And it's just going to make a blank database. I keep on saying we need to connect our database to our front end. Let's go back to our code. So please open up the AI Kintone gallery right here in your favorite code editor. Doesn't really matter. I have mine right here. And in the root of your folder, you're going to see a .env.example file. For those of you who are new to coding or just getting used to coding or starting to learn, I will briefly explain about .env files. .env files are an industry practice in web development where you have things that are necessary to your project, but you don't necessarily want them facing the end user, right? And this also includes, very often, super secret login information like your username, password, API tokens. If someone were to, for example, if you were to like include this like just as regular text in your JavaScript, someone could get access to that, and then they could rack up a bunch of charges on your OpenAI account. Because if they have a .env.example file, like here, it gives you like an idea like, oh, I need a URL that looks kind of like this. I need a username, I need a password, and blah, blah, blah. So definitely include those in your projects from now on if you are not, because it makes you look cool, which is the most important thing. You can see from in here, though, we need some information. So we're going to fill those out right now. Starting from the top. So our Kintone base URL, that is going to be our subdomain. And our subdomain is what we just created. So mine was like sean.kintone.com. So right here, it says it wants it in the format example.kintone.com. So please change the example to whatever your subdomain is. So here we have like dev events, right? Developer events, dev events.kintone.com. I would change this out to dev events. Then the next one is going to be your username. Like I said earlier, if this is your first time using Kintone, you haven't messed with the settings, your username will be the email that you use to sign up. So please put in that username and your password. You can type in your password here as well. And we're going to actually be redoing this down here. You'll see here that we have almost the same kind of like environment variables down here, right? And when we are using these environment variables, these top three are going to be used for the Kintone Customize Uploader, which is just like uploading our JavaScript to our Kintone. It's not actually a part of our code base, right? It's outside of our code base. It's going to be taking that code and uploading it to Kintone for us. Optional, actually, but very useful. When we're using Vite, because we want to bundle our JavaScript. There you go. Bundle our JavaScript into as small of a package as possible, right? So that way we can send it real fast on the internet. Vite has this kind of like convention where any environment variables that you need to use inside of your code have to be prefixed with VITE and an underscore in order to be used. And that is like a Vite thing. If you're using other packages, like if you're using Webpack, they don't make you do that. Other, for example, bundlers, they might not make you do that. Vite, they have very strong opinions about how environment variables should be handled. So anything that gets used in our code needs to be prefixed with Vite. This .env.example is just an example file, right? You actually need to copy and paste it and create a new file. Do not delete the .env.example or rename it. Copy and paste the .env.example file and name it to .env, please. Yeah. But be careful if you are uploading this to GitHub later that you didn't accidentally include your password and stuff in the .env.example file instead. All right, getting back on track, and I apologize for that. The Kintone subdomain right here, the Vite Kintone subdomain, this is actually just the first part of this base URL right here. So for example, sean.kintone.com, my subdomain is just Sean. Right? Or in this case, it's dev events. So like dev events. Kintone.com would be just dev events for me, depending on what your subdomain is. And then the next thing that we need to do is we need an API token and our app ID. I'm going to get our app ID first. What is our app ID? Our app ID is the environment or the database that we'll be saving our stuff to and creating our prompt in, right? So for me, I made this app earlier called AI Workshop 3, and I need to get my app ID. The app ID is up here. It's small. You can't zoom into the URL bar. This is my app ID right here after the /k. So this is my 56th database in my app ID. Here I'm going to be putting 56. If this is your first Kintone environment and your first project, yours is probably going to be 1 because this is your first database, right? The very last thing that I want you to do is we need to get our API tokens. And we have 2 today. One is going to be for Kintone because we're going to be uploading those images into Kintone. So we need a way to authenticate ourselves and say, hey, I'm a legit person. And then the second one is going to be our OpenAI token. We're going to do the Kintone one first, and then we'll spend some time getting the OpenAI token as well after that. So our Kintone API token, please go back to your Kintone environment and that app that you created, whatever you named it, mine's AI Workshop 3, and click on this cogwheel, right? We want to create an API token, which I actually already have created, and I will show you now. Don't worry, I will delete it later. Please click on App Settings, and then from App Settings, there is API Token right here. Click on API Token. I already have one right here for reasons. But you can click on Generate, and it'll generate one that you can see. And when you click on Generate, you also need to give it permissions, right? Because there are scoped permissions for our API token. So we need to give it the ability to edit records and also, just in case, add records as well. We're not going to be deleting records. We're not going to be managing our app via code. Do not create ugly AI images on my dollar. It's actually free, so it doesn't matter. And then when you create the API token, copy it. So I'll just do this one right here. Copy it. Take it back to your .env file, not .env.example, right? Your .env file. Paste it in. Make sure that there's no spaces or anything. Go back to here. Click on Save. And then you must click on Update App as well. If you do not update your app, then it'll be like, oh, I guess you didn't really want that API token, huh? So please be careful about that. Make sure to save and update your app as well. One more time, click on the cogwheel, App Settings. So last thing that we need for our .env file, and then we can build out our database proper, right, is we need our OpenAI token. Now, this is going to be a little bit more difficult to show, but what we're going to do is you need to go to the OpenAI website and you need to make an account. If you already have an account, make sure that you basically haven't already made one with the same phone number so you can get your free credits from OpenAI, which I hope they're still doing. Come on, right? And here is our account. It blocks out the API key. Don't worry, I've never used it. Once you have created an API key, this API key, it'll only show it to you once. So if you forget to copy paste it, you have to create a new one and then delete the old one, right? So please copy and paste that API key into your OpenAI token. So we have our .env all filled out. Please note it is not .env.example, it is .env that you need to be filling out, although you could obviously just copy it over once you filled it out. Hopefully we have connected our backend, and there is one more file that we need to edit real quick if you're using the Kintone Customize Uploader, which I highly recommend you do. You need to put your app ID into this file called the customize manifest.json. This is not necessarily part of our code. It is literally telling the Kintone Customize Uploader, hey, upload to this app and upload these files, please. So please open up the customize-manifest.json, and this app right here, you need to change it to your app ID. So once again, my app is AI Workshop 3. My app ID is up here in the URL. I can't zoom in on it, but /56. So my app right here is going to be 56. Do not touch anything else. You don't need to. Please open up your Kintone app right here, and you can see it as an empty database. And if you remember all the way at the beginning of our workshop, I showed you this image where we have this form entry, and that's what we're going to be building out together here today. And basically, this is where you're creating your columns of data in your database and your rows of database entries. Yep. So we're going to be moving through that, and I'll try and move a little bit more quickly. So we're going to be editing how our database works. Please click on that cogwheel one more time. And in the chat, we're also going to be linking which fields to fill out, and also we have it in the docs as well, but we're going to be doing it live as well. So you can see from here, if I refresh this, ignoring that button, you can see that we have some radio buttons for dog or cat, okay, and some radio buttons for who looks like how they look. So we're going to be filling that out first. So this is the cool part about Kintone. We're going to be creating a type-safe database with very little effort. Click on radio button right here and drag it over. And it'll say radio button. And in that radio button, it'll give you two choices. Please click on settings right here. And so if we remember, what we're going to be passing to our image generation is like a dog or a cat who looks happy, sad, who is wearing like some clothes and stuff, right? So we're going to name this for our convenience. This name is actually not going to be in the code right here. So you can name it whatever you want, but I did it like this. I want a ... And then we have two options, right? We have a dog or a cat. This dog or cat part, this is case sensitive. So do be careful. We have dog and cat. The layout doesn't matter. And then here's the most important part, is when we are accessing our database via code, right? Code is not very smart, right? It thinks that like a capital D dog is a different thing from a lowercase d dog, for example. And so we need a way for our code to absolutely know, hey, this is the part of our database that I want to get. And that's where field codes come in. Field code is basically like an identifier for this piece of data. So what this one is, it's kind of like what animal we want, right? So lowercase a, animal, is what I'm going to put in for field code, and I recommend you do that too. And this, later on, when we want to get like whatever people picked, dog or cat, we'll be referencing this field code in our code. So I want a dog or a cat, and then click on save, and then make sure you change the field code. And we'll be doing this for a lot of different fields, and I'll move through it a little bit more quickly this time, but that's the flow of what we'll be doing. Change the name to something that's easy, fill out some options, and then change the field code. And what you're actually doing is you are creating a type-safe form entry for a database, which is a very valuable skill, even if it's not in Kintone. It's actually pretty darn cool. So I want a dog or cat, one more radio button, and they're going to look, so who looks, and we're going to add another option or two here, happy, lowercase, right, sad, surprised, I guess. And we'll call this one's field code emotion with a lowercase e. Then looking at our final project one more time. The next thing that we have is a kind of like free entry part, right? They're holding something. So okay, that'll be a text field. So let's do a text field and change the settings on that. And it'll say holding a ... And we don't need to change any of these. But this field code, it's like we named this one random in our code just because like you could put whatever you want in there, right? They're holding something random. So we'll do random with lowercase r, save. And then our last one is going to be the clothes part of it, right? If you look here on this animation, wearing, and they can be wearing a hat, a jacket, new shoes, or it's clothes, right? They could be wearing all three. Radio buttons are only like one or the other, right? You can only pick dog or cat, happy or sad. The checkbox allows you to check multiple things, right? So we're going to do some check boxes, and they're wearing ... And we're going to have some options here. So what are they going to be wearing? A hat or a jacket or new shoes, right? And you could honestly change this to whatever you want it to be. I'm phrasing it this way with a hat, a jacket, or new shoes, and we'll have to deal with that later in our code because like the API endpoint wants natural language, right? When we send the text stream, we can't just say cat, hat, sad, and like it might spit out something. I doubt it though. Like it might look ugly, right? The field code for this one is going to be lowercase c clothes. Save that. And that should be all for the things that we're going to be passing to our AI. But we have a couple more things that we need to put that we'll be using later. Okay, so please bear with me here. The next things that we need to do, we need a place to save our image to, right? Because like it's our database. We have a place to save like what kind of animal and that kind of text information. We need a place to save our image to. So please drag in a attachment field right here. It's called an attachment, right? Kind of like an email attachment. And the field code for this one is just going to be image. Save that. So that's where we're going to be saving our image to, right? We need a place for that. In this project, we are also going to be saving the time or the date and time that the image was generated. So on the date and time field right here, just you can drag it anywhere, to be honest. Date and time. Please drag a date and time field onto your database, and that can just stay as date and time. And default to the record creation date and time. Yeah, sure, that makes sense. And then I forget what I named this one. I don't know. Date time sounds good to me. Honestly, if you change it, you have to change it in the code as well. That's all you have to be careful of. So this is going to be the date and time that our image was created. So we'll be updating that as well. And then we actually need two more things in here. And these ones are a little bit hard to understand at first. But if you look very closely at this app, there is a generate images button that is at the very top of our database, right? And there is also a spinner that spins when we click it, right? We need to create like HTML spaces for those two things to exist. And then we'll be creating them through code, through JavaScript later, right? So what we need to do is we need to put in 2 blank spaces into our app. And the places doesn't really matter. The blank space app, so I have one that I accidentally dragged up here. It is just going to be like an empty space right here. And you need to edit that and give it an element ID. And that's going to be like what we inject some JavaScript into to create some HTML elements, like a button, for example, or a cool spinner, for example. Space number 1, we're going to call it the generate button, lowercase g, uppercase B, generate button. This is going to be in the code, so it is case sensitive, unfortunately. And then space number 2, I put in the middle here because like I have a feeling that it'll make my spinner appear in the middle of the page. I don't know. I could probably just fix that with CSS, but I was lazy, so I just put it in the middle-ish of the page. Space number 2 is just going to be lowercase s, spinner. That was a lot of work, but it was a lot less work than coding out a database that is type safe by hand. Trust me. Yeah. So that was all of our field codes. There was quite a bit of information, and I feel some people are like listening to me and watching and trying to follow along and whatnot. So I'll go through it one more time, just very briefly, and then we'll move on to our coding. The blank spaces are down here on the left, and you just drag them up, and there's one right here, and there's one right here, right? And blank space number 1 at the top is going to be our button, right? You click the button to make the API call. It's generate button, lowercase g, uppercase B. And space number 2 is going to be lowercase s, spinner, and just in the middle-ish of your app. I don't know. But once you have all this done, please be sure to click Update App. We just did a lot of work. Save your work. Click Update App, or Save Form and then Update App, either one. Our database is currently empty, and we just created like this way to enter like some information into our database. Let's enter in some information just now, just to test, right? Please click on this plus sign right here. And this is for our end users, right? So we're going to be testing our end users. Our buttons don't show up yet because we haven't put them in yet, but our form, right? I want a dog or a cat. We'll do a cat who looks surprised, holding a first person to respond in the chat gets to tell me what they're holding. Please be appropriate. Go. Rolando. There you go. What? That's going to be weird. There you go. Holding a foot and then wearing a hat. And we don't have an image, right? Like that. Too slow, everyone. Although I will have them make new shoes just for you, South African chat member. And I do like a burrito, and I might eat a burrito after this workshop is done. Yeah. The date and time, we're just not going to leave that. We don't have an image yet. So click Save, and you will see that we have successfully entered in some information into our database, right? This is one record in our database. Click on the AI Workshop 3 or whatever you named it up top. And you can get back to this kind of like list view of how many records and all your records and stuff, okay? Cool. Alrighty, so we have data in our database. We have our front end and it is connected to our back end. And then we also have our code almost ready to go, but we need to fill out some more things. So let's get into our front end coding, and we are going to first get our record information that we have here and format it into a nice text string so we can send it to the AI, right? We need to actually tell the AI, hey, I want a cat who looks surprised holding a foot, wearing a hat and new shoes, right? So we're going to make that out first, and that'll be like our warm-up JavaScript today. So please, in the code base, please open up main.js. We will be only coding main.js today. And we have a couple of imports at the top of our main.js that we've already set up for you. And specifically, because this time, this is not a tutorial on how to make a API request to Kintone. We have plenty of videos and plenty of documentation on that on the website. Please check out the YouTube. We have already done this part up here for you, which is like the backend stuff. But to very quickly look at it, our Kintone, our OpenAI post request, it is a function, right, that takes in some kind of post body. We want to send some information to OpenAI's API, right? We have our API token stuff. We have the URL endpoint already set up for you. I don't have any of this memorized. We just looked it up on the documentation, and I literally copy pasted some of this stuff. And we are basically just sending a post request with this post body data, and then we're getting a response back. That's all that this AI post request.js is doing. You can look on our YouTube, like I said, for how to make those. And actually, hint, hint, next workshop, next month, we will be doing this in more detail with React as well. So if you're interested in learning React and Kintone, please tune in next month. We've imported here as, generate images from request/AI post request. So this is going to be our function that's called generate images, and we need to give it some kind of like data, right, that we need to send to the OpenAI, right? We also have update Kintone. And what update Kintone does, it's literally the same thing as the AI post request, but it's a put request, aka to update some information to Kintone. And we need to save our image that we get back from OpenAI, right? We get back this image from OpenAI, we format it a little bit, and then we need to save it to our database. So that's what update Kintone is doing. Yep. And then we have spinner from spin.js. That's just the spinner. Not that important. Our JavaScript file starts with an immediately invoked function, aka just an anonymous function up here that's saying as soon as you open this file, just immediately do this, right? And it's like boilerplate. A lot of our workshops have that. And then on our app record detail show page, app record detail show is this page right here. See that record that we just made? So when you have this page open, do blah, blah, blah is what it's telling it to do. And then, so on our events, on our record detail show page, immediately do blah, blah, blah. What is blah, blah, blah? We have a couple of things, and this is where like the coding part of our workshop comes in. And I have comments up here as well that you are able to see and read, and I think they're pretty easy to understand. We have a helper function here to convert base64 to blob format. What's blob? That's more advanced JavaScript and like web development. A blob is just like a piece of data that's like large. It might be in multiple parts, and it's always like files, right? Pretty much. So like this images, their file type is called, it's like a file blob, right? Simple data like text, for example, we always send it in like text or like JSON, right? And it's because the size is so small. Files and like movies and things are bigger, and so we need to have them be as blob. We need to convert the base64 that OpenAI's API is going to give us into a blob format and then upload it to Kintone. This is a helper function. I literally copied it from Stack Overflow because I'm a great developer. And that's why it looks very complicated. And that's because it is a little complicated and a little bit outside of the scope of this workshop. But good programmers will just use what they can use. And that's what I do all the time. We have a function here called prompt builder. Prompt builder. The text we will give to the OpenAI API. And so this is where we're going to be building out our string that we're going to be sending to the OpenAI API. So I want a cat who is wearing a jacket holding a foot, right? So this is what we're going to be coding a little bit later. We have some spinner options, not very important, so just ignore them. This is literally just for the spinner. I copied and pasted this from their get started. Next, we have a post body. So remember earlier when I said like we need to send some data to the OpenAI API, the post body needs to be in a specific format, right? According to what OpenAI's API endpoint wants, right? And what they want is a prompt, the prompt that you're giving to the API. N is the number of files, the number of images that you want to generate. You could generate 5 at a time if you want. We're going to be doing 1. The size of the image, 512 pixels by 512 pixels, so we don't burn through all of our credits. And then the response format, base64 underscore JSON. I got this from their API documentation. I literally copied and pasted it. So that is what you can do here, except for this prompt builder up here. This prompt is equal to prompt builder. Where is prompt builder? Remember, it's up here. And this is where we're going to be making our string. It's going to return a prompt string. So whatever we have this function up here return is going to be what gets slotted into this post body prompt field right here. After that, we have some stuff for the spinner. Like I said, this is not a spinner workshop, so I just already coded out for you, actually taken from their get started / documentation. Here we have our button that we need to make in our Kintone. Our generate button is document.createElement. So we're creating a button and we're putting it into where that generate button field code / element ID is, right? Remember the element ID was generate button, lowercase g, uppercase B. That's where this is, right? So we're putting a button into there. And then we're giving it some like text and stuff. And then we're saying on click. It's going to do a function when you click it. First, it's going to make a spinner, right? Because we want our end user to know, hey, we're doing something, don't navigate away from the page, right? So I did the spinner part. But what we need to do is call the OpenAI API post function, hint, hint, this one right up here, generate images. We need to wait for it to respond to us because it takes some time to make some API or some AI images. When it gives us back the image, we need to take it, format it a little bit, and then we need to upload it to Kintone, right? So that's what we're going to be doing up here. And then at the very end, we just put in our buttons and our spinners and stuff into our page. That's all. I know there was a lot of talking and a lot of text, but I feel like the comments are very easy to understand. And also remember, in the docs folder of this repository, we have all of the stuff that we're doing today, all the steps written out very painstakingly. It took a lot of time for Genji. And so, yeah, if you want to read that, please do. Getting into things, let's format our prompt string, and we're going to get rid of this to do right here. Inside of the prompt builder function on line 17, right here. So the first things that we need to do is we're going to create a prompt string. So let's say let prompt string equal, right? We're going to make up something called a prompt string. That's because we're returning it down here, right? And what we need to do is we're going to be like half typing this out, right? We're going to be half typing it out in like regular text, but we're also going to be getting from our database those values that that end user wants, right? They might want a cat, they might want a dog. So we need to be able to like half type this out, but also get those values and inject them as they come into our string, right? So let our prompt string equal. Here, you're going to do a cool JavaScript ES6 trick called string interpolation. String interpolation. What is string interpolation? What you do when you're making a string, right? You always learn like quotes or double quotes. please actually here type in some backticks. Sim, you already know. There, very good. Backticks. They're usually on the same key as like this tilde key, right? If you can't find the backticks. There are other ways to make strings interpolated. Like you could do like prompt string equals hello. And then you could also do prompt string what plus other string. And then like other string could be like what? Test. And then it would add those together for you. That's another way to do this, but we're going to be doing it a little bit cooler and a little bit smarter than that. Okay. In our backticks, let's start typing out. So I want what do I want? I want a cat or a dog, right? So we need to be able to get that value from our database. And this is one reason why we're working directly in Kintone today. We have access to that data right off the bat because we're uploading our JavaScript to Kintone. So what we're going to do is in our string, you're going to do a $sign and then 2 curly brackets. $sign and 2 curly brackets. And that's how you do string interpolation, aka inside of the string. So what do we want in our thing right here? Remember in our Kintone database that we have, if I go back, I want if you look back to our field code, right? This one was called animal. This one was called animal. So if we go back here, we can do event dot, and then which one do we have here? Event dot, there we go. We're in the record for our event. So we have access now to this record. If you were just to like console.log event.record, it would say, oh, this record right here that you're looking at right now. So record number 1 in our database, which is cat, surprised, foot, hat, new shoes, right? So I want a event.record dot, and then which part of the record do we want to put in here, right? And this is where our field codes come in. Animal. And then the animal field actually has a couple of properties to it. Dot value is what we need to put in right there. Event.record.animal.value. You'll also notice Genji in the prompt builder that he linked in chat, he also had cute. That's very good. I want a cute dog or cat is also nice to code in there as well. So we have interpolated this string right here. So if we were just to send this string off to OpenAI's API endpoint, it would just say, I want a cute dog. And it would probably spit out a cute dog or cat for us. But we're going to keep on going. So comma, I want a cute cat or dog. And you can guess what the rest of this is going to look like, right? Who looks, another string interpolation. So $sign curly brackets, event.record.emotion, right? Which emotion do we pick? Happy, sad, surprised. Who looks happy or surprised or sad. They're holding another string interpolation right there. And this is going to be event.record. What do we name it? Random. We named it random this time. Random.value. And please make sure that you're including value in there. I often make that mistake. And then the last one is going to be holding a blah, 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 and wearing something. And here we're going to stop at one point. If you'll notice, up until now in our app, these are all radio buttons, right? You could either pick one or the other, cat or dog, surprised or happy. Holding there's only one thing that goes in there. It's just whatever text, right? The clothes part, I got a little bit fancy, right? You can have multiple, right? As checkboxes, so they could be wearing a hat and new shoes and a jacket. So what we're going to do is we're going to loop through those values right now and make sure that we pick all of them up. So in our prompt string also then, what we need to do is loop through the values of our checkboxes, right? So we named it clothes, right? And it's going to have multiple values. And when you hear like multiple as like a keyword, usually you should start thinking, oh, it's an array or like some kind of multi-data object, right? We need to loop through that array of clothes. So we're going to do event.record.clothes.value right there. So that's going to be our close array, and it's going to have multiple things inside of it. So when you loop through an array, we want to use a for each loop. So for each, and it auto-completed that for me. There we go. Event.record.close.value for each element. You could for readability's sake, you could do this as well. Let close array equal event. In fact, I think I will do this. Close.value. and then you could just do a clothes array. That's better. And for each element or each cloth, right? For each, we'll just call it an element for now. It's fine. Doesn't really matter. Whatever you want to call it. So for each one of these, what we're going to do, so if the first thing that comes up in our clothes array is what? A hat. So let's work on that one first. Oh, I should have the index in here as well, and I'll talk about that why. There you go. Appreciate that. What we need the index for is which part of the array are we in? Because if it's the last part in our array, then we need to say and new shoes, for example, right? If it's part number 3 of the array. What we have here is a prompt string equals prompt string plus element, right? And what this is saying is, okay, for loop number 1 of our close array, right? However, if it's anything after that, we need to add an and to it, right? Wearing new shoes and a jacket. Wearing new shoes and a hat. There we go. That's what I was trying to figure out. And then our for each loop up here, I added in the index. I need to edit that real quick. So we actually need in our for each right here, and then that. I apologize about that. There we go. So one more time to go through this, our clothes array dot for each element or whatever you want to call the items inside of our clothes array, right? That whether that be option or element, and then which position is that in the array. So we have our prompt string right here, and this will be returning our prompt string, and you can see that our post body will now be filled out. This is our string that we'll be passing to the OpenAI API endpoint. Phew, very good. Honestly, we could have made this a little bit easier, right? And like you could have like just had someone free type in whatever they want in here, and then you can just pass it along. But that gives the user kind of like too much choice. So I think like this is a better end user experience, quote unquote, is having a form that you can type in, right? So part 2 of our coding experience right here, we have created our post body format. We have everything ready. Our spinner is all ready and blah, blah, blah. What we need to do now is when we click on the button, we need to first hit up the OpenAI API endpoint, wait for a response, then with that response, format a little bit, and then send it back to the Kintone database to be saved. So we're going to do some stuff right here. We need to call our OpenAI API post function with the requests body up here, right? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to call this generate images, and we're going to do generate images. And in here, we're going to pass in our post body, right? Remember earlier when we checked out the generate images file, it was expecting a post body. We need to send in a post body. And then what we're going to do is we need to set this equal to something. So I'm going to take a look real quick at what I set it equal to earlier, just to make sure that I don't differ too much from the docs, just because some people are also following the docs. Okay, so I did an async with .then, and then I made a timer. So okay, I got it. So with generate images dot post body, what we need to do now is if we just had this in our like file right here, we would just make the images and then we'd get back a response. We wouldn't do anything with it, and it would just not get saved to the database, right? What we need to do is asynchronously, we need to await our response from OpenAI's API endpoint. It takes a lot of time to make these AI images, right? We can use here, there's a couple ways to go about asynchronous program. We'll be doing all of them almost today, except for promises. But we'll be doing .then with this one. So .then, and then what we need to do with .then with our, what did I call it, response? If I was just like live coding as I wanted, I did it with result, there we go. So then with async, I called it result. You're going to wait for that result, and then with that result, then you are going to call it result, and then you're going to do something with it, right? So by typing it like this with the .then, you're going to wait for the response from generate images, and then pass it into this new .then async function. Is that okay? Then, according to the API documents that I looked at earlier, right, we're going to get back a base64 image with raw data, right, base64. We're also going to get a timestamp, like when you made this image, right? But the timestamp is going to be in Unix time. Unix time is just the amount of milliseconds since, 1970 or something, whenever Unix, they decided to make Unix time start. So what we need to do with our timestamp is first we're going to format it. So we're going to do let timestamp equal result dot And then API is giving us back from created. There we go. Or we'll do Unix timestamp just to make sure that everything's nice and same as docs. Our Unix timestamp is equal to result.created. And this is still going to be milliseconds. So we need to format it from Unix time into a local time zone string, right? We want it to be, instead of showing whatever a Unix timestamp would be, like 7,558,000 or however many milliseconds, right? We want it to say like a nice readable local time zone string. And the way that we can do that is by creating a date object and then formatting it to a date ISO string. So right down here, gonna get rid of that right here. So we have our Unix timestamp, and we need to is result.created the datetime. The datetime will be, we're formatting it right now. Result.created is the timestamp from OpenAI's API. So we'll do right here, we're going to make a new date object. So const date is equal to a new date. And that date is going to have a time of our Unix timestamp times 1,000. It's milliseconds. So what we're doing here with the JavaScript date object is creating a new date called date. And then we're passing in like what date or what time should it be. If you pass in the date object of seconds, and then it'll create like what date it is based on the number of seconds. Yeah. We're multiplying by 1,000 because OpenAI's API gave us milliseconds, aka 1,000, right? Then with our date, we need to basically edit it to be a local, there we go, const ISO date string is equal to, we'll do date dot to ISO string, boom. And here, now we have a time zone friendly that is aware of, for example, time differences between users string. So that's really nice. The other thing that we get back from our OpenAI API endpoint is some base64 data, right? So we need to do some more stuff with that. The way that we get back our data is right here. It's called result data index 0 b64 JSON. So I'm actually just going to copy and paste this real quick. I typed all this out earlier, but I want it to be the same as the docs. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable called image blob. We're going to be awaiting this function up here, and I'll tell you which function up here. We can await because we have async up here, right? So we're going to be awaiting the result of this function, so it's not going to be a race condition. Result.data index number 1, because we're only generating one image, b64 underscore JSON. This is all in the OpenAPI documentation. I literally copy and paste this result.data 0 part. And we're awaiting the results of b64 to blob, which is this helper function right up here. b64 to blob, this is going to take the base64 from OpenAI's API endpoint and turn it into a file or blob. Yep. And what it's going to return to us is a response.blob, which is really nice. Then we're going to do a little bit of formatting. We're going to designate it as a file. So we're going to do let new file. So we're going to do let file equal to a new file. And the way that this is constructed is a little bit strange. A file takes like multiple image blobs, or if you only have one, then one, but it needs to be in an array, right? And it's actually something called like a buffer array. So this image blob comes in brackets right here, right? And then we have a little bit of boilerplate. So I'm just going to copy that as well. There we go. Get rid of that. But we're basically telling this blob like, hey, we're telling the browser just to be friendly. This file is a file type of file. It is consisting of this image blob. It has a name of test.png. You could change that if you want. It is a type of image, and it is also last modified with ISO date string. I'm moving a little bit faster now just because I want to get this done within time so I can answer questions. Yeah. What we have here is we're going to be now updating Kintone, right? We're going to be saving to our Kintone database our image file, and we need to pass it three things. We need to say, hey, which record does this image belong to? Is it record number 1, record number 2? Is it the one with the cat, or is it the one with the dog, for example, right? We need to pass a file that needs to be uploaded, and also remember that we are updating the time stamp of the record, saying, hey, we created a file at this time. That's why we have that ISO date string as well. So what we can do, because once again we have async up here in our function, is await update Kintone, right? Update Kintone is imported right up here. And if you were to check out the file, you would see that it takes out, or it requires 3 parameters, right? Number 1 is our event.recordID. This is record number 1, for example, or record number 2. the file. This is the file that we created right here. It's a new file with the image blob. And then the ISO date string, aka our friendly time zone friendly date string that we created earlier, right? Last thing that we need to do, right? And this is just like a user experience type of thing. I found that people usually want to see their image when it gets uploaded correctly, right? They want to see it immediately. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in, and we're going to do one last piece of basically like formatting with our function. And it's called finally right here. And what we're going to do finally is just reload the window. So we have a function here at the very end. After you've done all this stuff, you've generated the images, you've formatted this stuff, you've formatted the file, and then you've uploaded it to Kintone. Finally, after all that's done, you're going to do window.location.reload. All right. So next thing that you're going to do, you've saved your main.js. You've filled out your environment files correctly. You have your API tokens and everything all ready to go. What we're going to do is we're going to basically first compile or build out our JavaScript files into a minified version to be uploaded. In the terminal, in the AI Kintone gallery, please run npm run build. And what this is going to tell, it's going to tell Vite like, hey, build out these three files, style.css, kintonecustomized.mjs, and then kintonecustomization.umd.js, these minified versions, okay? They'll get created in the dist distribution folder up here if you want to take a look at them. It's minified JavaScript, so it's very hard to read. Then npm run upload, and this will shoot out Kintone Customize Uploader. Anyways, what do you do after you have uploaded? Click on your app, AI Workshop, click on the record right here. Ooh, we have a button up here now, right? We have a button up here that says generate images. Want to click it, don't you? Ooh, it's spinning. Hopefully the page reloads. There we go. No image. No image. Yeah, we're almost there. Hold on. It said created though. Always got to take care of myself first. Our Kintone put request is looking to put in here result. That's why I named my field code image incorrectly, and probably you did all as well because of my inability to follow documentation. This attachment field right here should be called result, not image. So that's why my image was being created, but it was not being saved properly because our code was like, hey, where do I save this? Save it in the image field. That doesn't exist, dude. And then it didn't work. So first things first. Oh no. Oh no. That's not bad. Yeah, that's not bad. I'll take that. Next workshop will be working more on the API call part of this using React. We'll be doing a React in Kintone workshop. And also it'll be tied to a very cool sort of promotion / contest that we'll be doing. So definitely keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. Subscribe to us on Eventbrite. It's going to be a fun one, and I'm excited with actual prizes and not junk prizes. Join our meetup group. Join our YouTube. Join our Eventbrite, please. And take the survey. Yeah, that might be it. Cool. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate everybody coming. We're going to close the slides now. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye. We're all done here. Woohoo.